All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's Mazske Finance and Millennial Mike back with you again, and I'm going to turn it right over to Millennial Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey guys, how's it going? Hey, so in this video, we're going to be talking about how Mark is buying his second property, this time with all cash, but he's still going to use kiavi.com, the lender, to do either a cash out refinance or incorporate them in the strategy somehow. So this is a different type of loan than the other loan that we just talked about. If you want the link to that video, it'll be in the description below. But Mark, explain to us what your strategy is using Kiavi for this one.
Sure. Basically, what I'm doing this time is a straight up BRRRR strategy to buy a house, to rehab it, and then to do a cashback refinance. Okay. So what I'm doing, it is a second house. It's similar to the first house. I'm getting a little bit cheaper. It turned out the buy price is $64,000.
That's a good price. I can't find anything under like 70 in that area. And just for those who don't know, Mark owns 25 rental properties currently at this time. So this would be like number 26 or 27. So anyways, go ahead, Mark. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. And the price of this house, when I first looked at it, it was more. It was like 75 to 80,000.
Okay.
Okay. But then even when I got it lowered, I got it down to like 66. I actually did a home inspection on this one. I didn't do a home inspection on the other one, and the home inspection found some things. So I went back and asked, hey, can I get a little bit more knocked off? And I asked my real estate agent, said, let's ask for 4,000. It was like 66, we asked for 4, but they're not going to give 4. We'll see if they give anything. They might not give anything at all. So they responded and said, hey, we'll knock 2,000 off, 64,000. I was like, cool, that works.
Free money. You can't argue with that right there.
Right. That works. So anyway, what I am doing, I am paying cash for the house. And when you pay cash for a house, you still pay closing costs, but they're much less than if you were to get a mortgage. Right. And I'm guessing $1,000, $1,500, somewhere around there.
Right, because you still have to pay your title search and your title history, but there's no loan origination fees, there's no loan closing, there's no underwriting fees, none of that. So there is a lot of benefits to cash buying. Anyways, Mark, go ahead.
Right. Yep. Very true. And comparing this house to the first one, the first one's been a process because I had to come up with a scope of work, give it to the bank, go back and forth with the lender, several different times. This second house, I pay cash for it. Our mutual friend Dominic, he's going to help me out again with the contractors. We'll get the contractors in there. Yes, they will have their own scope of work, but they can just go forward and get the place rehabbed. And once it's rehabbed, I'll probably just move straight into finding a tenant, hopefully a Section 8 tenant. And at that point, I will tell Kiavi that I want to do a cashback refinance, and then we'll start that process.
So you're using kiavi.com. Why? Why not just get traditional financing?
Well, for myself, I'm basically topped out. An individual's limited to 10 mortgages. And what I like, even if I pay some houses off and drop under 10, I kind of like using a non-QM lender because to compare it to a normal lender, it's an easier process. They don't look at my W-2. They don't look at my tax returns. They don't do a hard credit pull. They do a soft pull, so it doesn't really show up on my credit report. Their fees might be a little expensive. Their interest rate might be a little bit higher. But in the end, if I'm still positively cash flowing, it's much less stress because the more, Mike, you have more than one rental property. You have up to like 6 or 7 properties. So when you get a mortgage, you have to list all those properties on that application, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's getting to be a few, tracking down all that paperwork.
Yes. Yes. So that's the beauty of a non-QM lender. Even just sending my tax return off is a pain because it's so many documents. It's like 125 pages or something.
Right.
So not having to prove that. And they don't look at masking the individual. They look at the house, at the asset itself, and they're basing their mortgage or their refinance off that house, not off of me.
Right, which is nice because, a lot of folks out there, they're like, look, the property should be able to qualify for this on itself. And traditional lending, traditional financing, they are subject to a lot more government regulation. Good, bad, or indifferent, whatever your opinions are, that's the reality of the situation. They're subject to government regulation. That's why we can only have 10. It used to be you could only have 4. And that I have a feeling that we may return to something like that at some point as they try to tamp down on investors and then thus enter the non-QM lender. Now, you chose Kiavi. Why? Why did you choose them? How'd you hear about them?
I basically started looking around. I had looked at another non-QM lender, and I've spoken with this other, I won't name who it is, I don't think, but I've spoken with them several times. They're a good company. They appear on a different YouTube channel, and they get highly recommended. But in my situation, the other company would do more like portfolio loans. And if you want to buy an individual property, you can, but it's a minimum price of $100,000.
Right.
And I'm buying under 100 grand. So then I wanted to find a different lender. And when I started doing some searching, I found a couple of different ones. I looked at their websites. My first question was, how low of a mortgage can you give? Some lenders have a minimum mortgage 125, 150, and I wanted somebody lower. What would their costs be? What are their interest rates? What's the process? And when I looked at Kiavi, out of the ones I looked at, they were probably the best fit for me. It was all online. They do call me, they do email me, but everything's done online. And they didn't ask for that much stuff from me. They did ask questions, especially the first one. They're asking a lot of questions about the house, the exact work that's being done. But on this house I'm buying now, when I go do the cashback refinance, they're going to send an appraiser in, and hopefully the appraiser goes in and says, everything's in perfect condition. He'll give his figure. Kiavi gets that figure, and then they will loan me up to 75% of that dollar amount. And that dollar amount could be anywhere in that range, $100,000 to $125,000.
Right.
It depends on the appraiser.
Yeah. So you're all in cash to buy $64,000, $66,000. Okay. And 64. And you're estimating somewhere around $10,000 to get it remodeled.
Right. Somewhere around there.
So from 64, we're at 74. Call it 15 to get it remodeled. Say we're at $80,000 all in. Now, you and I know because of the research we've done on the market, but mostly because our friend Dominic, who knows the market very well, that these houses are going to ideally appraise for 100 to 120,000. And so then when you use Kiavi to do your cash out refinance so that you can get the 30-year fixed rate mortgage and fixed rate debt, you should get all or most of your original money, both the purchase price and the amount you paid to repair the property, back in your pocket. That's correct?
That's correct, because let's say we go with your figure. Say I spend $80,000 for everything, all in 80 grand. If it appraises for $100,000, the most they would lend me is 75,000. So it would cost me $5,000 out of pocket.
Right.
But if it appraises 105, 110, 115, 120, then I can run the numbers and I always want positive cash flow, like a lot of positive cash flow.
Right.
So if I go with a higher number, if I'm getting less cash flow, I'm going to pick something that's fair to me. And maybe I only make $2,000, or maybe I make nothing, or maybe I'll make $5,000 or $10,000. We shall see.
So really what it comes down to is, in a worst case scenario, it costs more than he thought. He refinances it for less than he had hoped. He'll still pay $5,000 to own a house. Mark, how many houses have you bought for just $5,000 when all is said and done? You only have like one or two like this, where you call the one your free house. But I mean, this is a great strategy. And $5,000. I mean, if I could just $5,000 and get a house, oh, I wish.
I agree, because you've heard me talk about my free house. And that's one of my houses down in Birmingham. And that house in Birmingham, we did a 401k loan for my wife's 401k, and it worked out for us. This house, it's my cash. I'm not using a hard money loan. I'm not using HELOC money. I'm not using 401k money. It's cash that we have. So if something bad happened and maybe I spend even more money and maybe the appraisal comes in low and maybe they only give me, they do a refinance for $60,000. Okay, maybe I had to spend 20 grand out of pocket, but yet it's probably going to rent for a high rent amount, and I would positively cash flow, who knows, $500, $600, $700 a month, perhaps.
Which means that it would be pretty much the exact same as every other rental you already own. So even in the worst case scenario, it's still right in line with everything else you got going on. So the strategy that Mark's using here hinges on a few different things. Number one, he's very experienced at this point. Number two, he has money and passive income coming in enough to cover issues, problems that he may run into. There's certain holding costs. I mean, the house isn't going to be rented while he's remodeling it. Number three, he knows that he can qualify with an after repair value because he has good knowledge of the market, and our friend Dominic has good knowledge of the market. If you're just taking a random shot in the dark, like, well, I hope it is worth this much afterwards, that's not a good strategy. He's basing his after repair value off of hard evidence and facts that he has from other people he knows in the market. So this is a more advanced level strategy. Mark and I don't want anybody watching to get the wrong idea, like, hey, I should do this for my first rental property. Probably not. But this is a strategy you could move into. Mark, I think I got all the questions I got answered. So unless there's any other thoughts that you want to wrap it up with.
Yeah. Well, the only thing is, you're saying everything that needs to be said. The only thing I will repeat basically is, if you're using any kind of borrowed money to do this strategy, it's a HELOC, it's a 401k loan, it's a hard money loan from someone else, and the deal does not work out perfectly, you're still on the hook to pay that loan off.
Right.
So you got to be really careful. And if you're a brand new investor, don't listen to those people out there that say, do BRRRR, do BRRRR, do BRRRR to get going. Learn how to invest in real estate first. Then it is a more advanced strategy. Okay. So does that make sense to you, Mike?
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. I have never tried to do the strategy myself until just now. I'm trying to do the exact same thing as you, except instead of a big pile of cash, I have a big pile of a home equity line of credit, which means that I borrow the money to myself, but at an interest-only interest rate that is variable with the market. In inflationary times, there's certain levels of risk, and there's a certain level of complexity that I would not recommend to the beginner. So that would be my cautionary warning to anybody watching. That being said, I'm going to try my best. Mark and Dominic are going to coach me through it, and I'll give you my videos on it when I get to that point. And I'm just grateful for Mark sharing with me at the very least, and hopefully with anyone else watching. If you appreciate this, leave a comment down below thanking Mark. He's the one who's made me successful. So Mark, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Because as you know, I love helping people. And when I first met you, you're a fellow brother in blue. And I do think you wear a blue uniform. If you don't, you're still a brother in blue.
It is French blues. That's what we got.
Sounds good. All right. So for Millennial Mike, this is Mazske Finance. We hope you did get some good information out of this video and the last video that will help you out in your real estate investing career. So until next time, Mazske Finance, Millennial Mike, we are signing out.